trumped up and quite the scene and all the hoopla. Yes, yes, yes. A big show, absolutely. But absolutely instrumental in getting women's sports going and taking Title IX one step further.
What we want is what we still haven't got.
Until the match, leaders of the women's movement had paid little attention to sports or to the issues raised by women athletes.
Sisters.
Many women in the movement, like Gloria Steinem, hadn't experienced sport. They felt that, equal pay, the right to choose, all these other issues were more important in sports.
I used to have discussions with Gloria. I would go to her and say, Gloria, you're not using us right. We are the essence of what you're talking about.
It began to become a cause célèbre, equality for women.
That was a strong turning point for the women's movement in terms of them looking at sport differently. I think they realized that sport had this power to bring media to the women's movement.
With King's victory, feminists extended their focus on Title IX beyond the classroom into the locker room. Athletics gave them a way to measure discrimination.
Sports, you couldn't deny it. We were being denied an opportunity simply because of sex. There are very few teams, and the teams were given inferior equipment. The coaches weren't paid as much. In some places, there were no teams, and so it was an easy case for us to make.
Feminists joined ranks with celebrity athletes and the Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women. The AIAW would move to the front lines in the battle of Title IX.
We heard about Title IX very early in 1973. We were elated because we could foresee that there were going to be equal opportunities for young women in sport.
We were puzzled, what does Title IX mean? What is gender equity?
The confusion quickly gave way to opposition once it became clear just what Title IX did mean: equal opportunities, treatment, and benefit for women athletes.
I don't think there ever was any unwillingness by the NCAA to embrace the surge in women's interest in intercollegiate athletics. The concerns dealt with the legality of what was being imposed and the practical realities.
Nobody was sitting there rolling in money, and all of a sudden they're saying to you, you've got to have the same number of sports for women that you have for men. And everybody's saying the same thing. Well, tell me where we're going to get the money to do that.
Walter Byers, who directed the NCAA, felt that women's sports, if they were funded out of the same pot as men's sports, would cost colleges huge amounts of money, and that this would bankrupt college sports.
Many football coaches became very scared because we did not want anybody to touch what we considered the locomotive, the economic locomotive that drove the whole program.
The NCAA tried to persuade government officials to exclude athletic programs from Title IX because they did not receive federal funds.
The head of the NCAA, he said his position was that the federal government doesn't belong in the locker rooms.
We very quickly realized we were going to have a fight on our hands, and it was David against Goliath, the AIW against the NCAA.
Walter Byers dispatched football coaches to Washington.
I can remember he called me, he said his precise words were, Corrigan, there's some dame up there in the Office of Civil Rights, the Department of Education, that's got it all wrong. You need to go up there. I'm sending Hanson, and you two go up there and get her straightened out. I said, oh, this will be good.
The government did not back down. Neither did the NCAA coaches. University of Michigan football coach Bo Schembechler appealed to Michigan's favorite son, President Gerald Ford, to help prevent injury to intercollegiate sports.
We lobbied, just like anybody has the right to lobby, to make sure that football was not really hurt by Title IX.
What did you discuss with the president?
First of all, I'd like to say that the football coaches that were present, Darrell Royal, University of Texas, President of the American Football Coaches Association, Bo Schembechler from Michigan, myself from Oklahoma, want to say that in no way do we oppose Title IX. We discuss, frankly, the issues with President Ford.
President Ford had played football, and we knew that he understood what football was all about. We didn't think that some of the women advocates understood football.
But President Ford decided not to limit Title IX. He approved the regulations, and schools were given 3 years to comply.
The NCAA didn't defeat the law. They tried, first of all, to get athletics totally exempt from Title IX, and they failed in that. And then, with the help of John Tower, who's a senator from Texas, they tried to get football and men's basketball exempt from Title IX. So it would have left a very, very weak Title IX.
It was the revenue from those sports that the NCAA now wanted to exempt. The AIAW rallied against it.
The first intimate involvement that I had with Title IX was when I first went to the University of Texas as its athletic director for women's sports. Darrell Royal was then the head football coach. I received a call from two AIAW attorneys. Listen, there's this guy, John Tower, the senator, who is trying to gut Title IX. And we're trying to get some budgets together to show the discrepancies between men's and women's sports budgets, that it's like night and day. So I said, yeah, mine's on one sheet of paper, 70,000. And his was about 42 pages.
Attempts to limit Title IX had failed, but the fight had just begun.
We had the men lined up on one side of Title IX and the women lined up on exactly the opposite side.
Start with a large crowd, some cheerleaders, and of course cheering fans. And to that add the best women's collegiate basketball teams and coaches in the country.
Women's sports were beginning to grow. Schools were adding teams, and those teams wanted to compete.
The Physical Education Association wrote to the NCAA to ask them if they might be interested in starting championships for women, and they wrote back immediately and said no, and that their championships were for men only.
That was when the AIAW was formed and started women's championships. The NCAA, meanwhile, was challenging Title IX in court.
We were adding championships almost every year, and we had to drop everything and attend to Title IX.
Lots of women from different organizations were pounding the halls of Congress.
Billie Jean King, we called her, and we touted her around the corridors. By that time, in '75, we were already aware that it was in the sports arena that we were going to have to fight out the survival of Title IX.
Donna DeVerona, by then an ABC commentator, helped create the Women's Sports Foundation to try to be a political force for women athletes.
We needed a group of vocal individuals to go to Washington every time there was a challenge to Title IX.
At the same time, women's rights groups kept going to court to get the government and schools to enforce Title IX.
We had to sue everybody. I don't think that people just even imagine how many lawsuits have been taken. And without them, believe me, there would never have been this kind of integration.
But women still lagged behind.
We had just a shoestring budget, and when we traveled in vans. I'm sure we probably broke the law many times because we put 18 people in a 15-passenger van. We sold donuts to buy uniforms.
When I went off to the University of Virginia in the fall of 1977, I was able to get a half of the only scholarship that was available to the women's basketball program. And here's how it worked. I got tuition and fees, and a teammate who came in with me the same year got room and board. So I got to go to class, and she got to eat.
Athletic departments like the one at Virginia were struggling too over how to meet the new needs of women athletes.
We had to buy sports bras, and it may have been Val Ackerman that said to me, well, you buy jock straps for the men. I mean, are you telling me that, you know, we don't deserve a... Whoa, okay, you got him.
From equipment to facilities, women expected the full measure of Title IX. At Yale, the women's crew team waited years for a locker room in the old boathouse and finally staged a protest.
They went into an assistant athletic director's office. They stripped. They had Title IX written in blue paint across their back. So it was quite a daring and significant statement for a time.